Hi, I'm Steve Smith, Director of Educational Leadership at Cincinnati Bell, and welcome to another video in our series on the responsible use of technology. We're going to cover a lot of information in this program, but please feel free to contact me at any of the numbers or addresses that you see on the screen, and I'll do my best to get back with you and help in any way possible. You know, Cincinnati Magazine was kind enough to follow us around last spring to several of our student presentations on social media. And the author, Sarah Stankorb, interviewed several of the students from many of these different schools, and I think you'll find this article of great interest, particularly if you have teenagers. And you can access this article on the June 5th edition of Cincinnati Magazine at cincinnati-magazine.com. You can also find additional information about this program and some of my own experiences related to these subjects on my blog site, awiredfamily.org. When I present this program to students, I use the term social media. However, it actually goes deeper than simply the term. When we mention social media, there are three distinct components to the use or the misuse of social media. There's the digital device, the app, and how the app and devices are put into use by a young man or a young woman. The proliferation of devices and apps have done a lot of good in our culture. For example, social media and its associated bots, these little pieces of digital code that provide social listening, they were able to identify the outbreak of Ebola well before any of us knew it was about to occur. On October 16th of this year, Facebook announced their new safety check feature, which allows friends and family to easily notify each other of their well-being following a disaster. And of course, there are these fun and educational games such as Math vs. Zombies, which combine entertainment and education. But unfortunately, there are those unintended consequences that technology has brought to our door, such as terrorists using social media to both recruit and terrorize us globally. And of course, many of us have been on the receiving end of the wave of cybercrime at banks, retail establishments, and even those organizations that we've paid to protect our credit, such as Experian. If your data is on a network, we now know it's subject to being hacked. One technology that's been really interesting to me has been the evolution of radio in the family. You know, in the 1940s, it was not uncommon for 2 or 3 generations to live under one roof, and central to that home was often the console radio. That bit of technology was where each generation received much of its news, sports, and entertainment. There were only a few stations back in those days, but more importantly, there were generally only one radio in that home, and each generation was impacted, good or bad, by these very few programs. And so each generation might have had a very homogenized view of news and music and sports. You know, that changed as radios became smaller and less expensive. For example, in the 1950s, Mom and Dad might have had a radio, or Mom might have had a radio in the kitchen, and Dad might have had one in his workshop. Now, Mom and Dad had a choice of where they got their news, their music, and their entertainment. By the 1960s, the transistor radio made it affordable for everyone. Teens could listen to their own bands, which really changed the music industry. Moreover, they could listen anywhere and any time with a single earbud, silencing their music from Mom and Dad's ears. And then by the 1980s, there was the Sony Walkman, which provided stereo headsets and the ability to bring your own audio cassette on your jogs. And now the advent of the smartphone allowed an even smaller device to bring news, sports, stock tips, music, games, and a world of information, catering to every niche interest of every family member. So, in the 1940s, many interests overlap due to a limit in the amount of devices and programming. And today, the interests are so varied. Everybody has so much access. And it makes it very difficult to know what children are watching, reading, listening to, and interacting with. You know, we are very much a society that is both tuned in and really at the same time tuned out. This is particularly troubling when you consider that 45% of teens said that they'd change their online behavior if Mom and Dad were monitoring what they were doing. But we all know most adults have little knowledge of how to better understand their child's activity. When we speak with students, Our presentation deals with three overlapping areas: sexting, online privacy, and cyberbullying. And having now spoken to over 120,000 students and adults, we know that many cyberbullying cases start with a young person sharing an intimate photo of themselves with someone that they think they love. They think that that image is private. And then, at some point, the relationship ends. In an act of revenge, that other party shares it with their friends, and now the cyberbullying begins. What I didn't realize when we started this program about 4 years ago is the amount of depression and anxiety that teens go through between the ages of maybe 11 and 18. If you're going through such a trial of depression and you're cyberbullied, you're about 5 times more likely to harm yourself. And sadly, this is not always a way of telling if someone is depressed. Most teens don't necessarily wear it on their sleeves. I was reading an article a couple of months ago in Psychology Today on what do teens really want from social media. And after finishing the article, I laughed and thought, if you took out the words social media, it's what every generation of teens have always wanted. The difference today over the past generations has to do with the consequences. For example, teens want to get attention, so they share their stories, pictures, addresses, and other personal information. But if your security on your apps is not locked down to private, well, you're sharing that information with the world. Your identification can be stolen. And people that don't have their best interests at heart can hurt you. They want to get approval. So today that approval is the like button, which in some ways has become a proxy for your social status. Not enough likes often play havoc with the teen's self-worth. Teens want to cultivate an image. In fact, there's a greater social status in being seen rather than truly being known. Yet is that the image they really want to cultivate? Is that the image that's going to help them get into college or to find a job? Is that the image truly who they are? Well, when you cultivate an online image, you're allowing others to make a judgment based on what they see rather than what they know. Teens want to stay in the game. In fact, social media might be a validation of their popularity in the real world. And they often have this fear of missing out. And so do many adults. How many of us have been out to dinner with our family or spouses only to have someone in the group become disconnected from the conversation, their eyes buried in their smartphones? Let's face it, you see it at athletic events and parties and picnics and family gatherings. It's ironic that the same technology that was developed to help us better communicate has hurt our ability to communicate with those closest to us and under our roof. While most of us understand it's a problem, most don't stop to think about the less obvious issues related to social media. For example, we are a data-driven society. Schools make decisions based off of data. Businesses make decisions based on data. Marketing companies often make decisions based off of your data. It's hard to stop this proliferation of your personal data. If you surf the web, you've likely given up some of your own data. Used a loyalty card, you've given up data. Bought a home, your info is available on your county's auditor's website. Bought a car. All these things provide data, which is often distributed to third parties. But most don't know that your use of social media apps and games also provide data about you and your family. For example, there are several websites such as Spokio, whereby simply entering an email address or telephone number allows someone to discover all publicly available information about you. And if you use social media without locking down your privacy or security, that information becomes available to anyone that subscribes to Spokio. There's not much you can do about information that the local government provides online, but you can control the biggest leaker of personal data, you and your use of social media. Now, we tell students that we must think of apps and the internet as a giant brain that floats in the ethers of the universe. It has an infinite capacity to store your personal data, and it has an infinite capacity to distribute your data, and it never deletes or forgets anything. The apps that you see here on the screen generally have some kind of security features that allow you to determine who has access to your information. But you have no control what your friends do with that data, meaning your words, photos, or videos. Once you click post or send, you have lost control of that data. Moreover, then you have apps such as Ask FM, which allows anonymous questions. Most adults haven't heard of it, but it's a haven for teens for bullying, racism, and breaches of privacy that anybody in the world has access to. And you can't lock down your privacy on Ask FM. As we tell kids, there's an incredible power in inappropriate words, pictures, or videos once a relationship has gone south. You post these words or images and you send them in a text message. Those powerful images can go viral, and you're never getting them back. They're there for your family to see, your future spouse, children, employers, everyone to see. You know, I've often thought it somewhat amusing that we force people to get a license to fish and to drive a car, but we provide little education for anyone wishing to have a digital device, app, and access to broadband. Yet you can do as much damage with social media as you can behind 3,000 pounds of metal on wheels. When I wake up in the morning, this is kind of what I see. I see a myriad of apps floating through my mind. There's well over 1 million apps in the iTunes or Google Play stores, and it's impossible to keep up with them all. So I try to simplify in my particular case and do my own social listening in order to see what apps are being adopted by young people. So for the purpose of this presentation, we have basically divided apps into categories. However, most of these apps are like Swiss Army knives. The Swiss Army knife is a knife, it's a screwdriver, it's a bottle opener, it's a scissors. And in much the same way, you can't really limit today's apps to one particular set of features and functionality. But we've done our best here to characterize these, and we'll discuss them today. So let's take a look at some of the texting apps such as Snapchat, Kik, WhatsApp, and so on. First off, the JFK Medical Center in New Jersey did a study and found that the average American teen sends 34 text messages at nighttime after mom and dad have assumed they're already sleeping. Those are staggering numbers. And although I confess I listened to the Reds West Coast games against the Dodgers when I was a teen, that was one-way communication without access to a camera or means to record any of my communication. Question here is, how much sexting or inappropriate conversations take place after bedtime? The most talked about texting app today might be Snapchat, the ephemeral app that allows you to send photos, videos, or text messages that will disappear in a predetermined period of time. However, the reality is that those photos don't really necessarily disappear. Many a case of sexting have ended up in a prosecutor's office because someone sent a naked Snapchat photo and a boy does a screen grab and then sends it to his or her buddies. Moreover, consider the issue of data. Depending on who you believe, there's somewhere between 60 million and 100 million active users of Snapchat. That data that they have on a user, such as who they are, where they are, who they associate with and when, it's a gold mine to marketing companies given the demographic of the users. As we always tell students, D plus D equals D. In other words, the right data of the right demographic is worth the right dollars. And Snapchat will eventually have all three. They have been valued as of this year at $10 billion, even though they have no revenue. But another important aspect of this is, you might have heard on October 13th, a third-party app that allows you to make copies of snaps was hacked. And now hundreds, if not thousands of photos that users thought had vanished have magically appeared on the web. And then there is the Kik app. Kik, it's an interesting texting app that actually has its own ecosystem or set of plugins that work as snap-ons to their core product. However, as you'll see, it's often used by pedophiles who are interested in finding children.
Popular app preteens and teenagers use to chat with their friends, but Kik is opening up their phones to much more, including potentially dangerous strangers. Erica Zuka shows us local deputies have found predators using the app to target kids.
Kik is meant to be an innocent way to privately chat with friends or followers from other social websites.
What's very popular is using other social media like Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. A person will say, hey, this is my Kik username, someone kick me.
But you can also add people you don't know, and deputies say predators search for and target young users who do this.
As an investigator, whenever I'm on these services posing as an underage minor, it doesn't take much effort at all for these men to send me very graphic and nude photographs without even asking for them. I don't even ask for them, and they just get sent.
Kyle Hartsock says, bottom line, know the danger and protect your kids by being open.
The best practice is talk to your kids, let them know, hey, you can trust me, because they're going to probably try these things no matter what. What they need to know is, hey, when something bad happens, someone's threatening you, someone's trying to blackmail you for pictures, you need to come tell me, the parent, about it so we can handle it.
Kik says they actively try to protect users. In May, they rolled out a feature that blurs photos until a user confirms they want to chat with them, ruling out advances of pedophiles who put illicit images as their profile picture.
Kik also has an entire section of their website devoted to teaching parents how to make sure their kids are using that app safely, which is obviously very important.
Yeah, very important.
Another interesting app that you might hear of soon is Yo. Yo is a social application for iOS, Android, and Windows phones. The app's only function is really to send a user's friend the word Yo as a text and audio notification. But it's since been updated to include user profiles and other types of notifications. So O was created really in a very short period of time by a guy named Orville. And it was launched on April Fool's of this year, 2014. However, as of the recording of this video, there's been over 2 million people have downloaded the app. And on the surface, there's nothing wrong with this app. But watch for it being used for anything that requires a simple interface that can send an alert to many people simultaneously. Or if you simply want to let someone know that you're thinking about them, you send them a yo. So that brings us to the dating apps. Most of us probably think of apps or websites such as eHarmony.com or Christian Mingle when the term dating app is used. However, there are many, many such sites and apps for the most narrow of dating or hookups that you might have in mind. It's one thing for unmarried, adventurous adults to access. It's quite another for teenagers. For example, ask a college student or 20-something if they've ever heard of Tinder, and they'll definitely nod their head affirmatively. However, it is less a dating site and more of a hookup site. This is an issue when you consider that 7% of their user base are between the ages of 13 and 17. And then there is OkCupid. If you take your personal data seriously, you'll want to know that recently, without permission, OkCupid did a little experiment with user data by matching people that have nothing in common simply to see what would happen. Data, data, data. It can make or break you. I'm sure there are a lot of unhappy OkCupid registered users right now. Now, as a parent and also a grandparent, I would say the most disconcerting apps are those that allow someone to post anonymously and to have anonymous interactions with the users. For some, it's the excitement of these apps that is indeed the mystery behind each user. However, there can be an issue when you're dealing with children, some of whom might be suffering personal difficulty in their lives, or as we mentioned before, depression. Street Chat is a growing app among some young people. For example, in Connecticut, you might have read that a 14-year-old boy was arrested for posting photos of a teacher with sexually charged captions about that teacher and her supposed inappropriate behavior with another student. Yik Yak started as an anonymous app for college students. It works within a 5-mile radius of your smartphone and allows you to view what other people in the area are saying or doing. You can also expand your search into other areas as well. However, like so many anonymous apps, it often shows the dark side of humanity. As was discovered back in Orange County when there was a bomb threat or hoax which was sent via Yik Yak. But it's also used for bullying.
Actually, I was a victim, and I don't like that. What Generica Berry doesn't like is a hateful post found on Yik Yak about herself. It was mostly rumors and lies, and people are just spreading stuff just to fit in with the crowd.
How hurtful was that?
It was very.
The free app is a cross between Snapchat and Twitter that can be seen from users in a 5-mile area, except the senders are anonymous. The posts sometimes crude, rude, and riddled with foul language.
It's causing a lot of problems with self-esteem and friendships are being lost and stuff, so it's not really good.
That is how parent Priscilla Dixon describes it. Her daughter expressed concerns.
I think it is an interesting little platform that doesn't seem to serve any purpose other than to facilitate bullying.
That's the concern of administrators from Whitney Young, Loudoun, St. Ignatius, Francis Parker, to New Trier and Lake Forest. They all send warning letters to students. Anyone using the app to bully, our response will be direct and immediate.
I'm hoping that the overwhelming amount of students are going to look at that this is just nonsense.
Hoping students will avoid the app is about all schools can do. Technical experts say blocking Yik-Yak won't work.
Schools really don't have any way to lock down a network on a phone that's being served by a major carrier. Schools can't block that.
And then there's Ask FM, or simply referred to as Ask. It's perhaps the app that is best known for teen suicides. And of course, it's not the app, it's the use of the app. However, one important aspect about Ask is that you cannot lock down your security. So anyone can see anything that you or your child post. And so many of these posts are anonymous. So cyberbullying is quite common on this app. The app or the site was recently purchased by Ask.com. And to their credit, they promised to clean up the app or shut it down. And I suggest you stay tuned. Many adults have not heard of Tumblr. It's been around for some time and it's a very eclectic blogging site. Yahoo just purchased them last year for $1.1 billion. Why? Data, data, data. They have the right demographic of users, and that data is worth $1.1 billion to Yahoo. And as we see here, the content can be very graphic and sexually charged, and not the place that you want your 13 to 15-year-old child visiting. Yet, unfortunately, many do. Tagged is a difficult app to categorize. Some might call it a hookup app, but it does have many different features and characteristics. It's a little bit like Facebook, I guess, in that respect. You can see here people tend to create an image for how they want to be known. It was really recently the epicenter of a sextortion issues. A man met a young woman on the app. He groomed her over time to get her to trust him. He convinced her to send a naked photo. And then once he had the image, he told her he would kill her, her family, and blow up their home if she didn't send more images. Fortunately, she was strong and she told her parents, and thankfully law enforcement found this sextortionist. But such episodes don't always have such a happy ending. And of course, there's YouTube. YouTube is like New York City. It has the best of the best and the worst of the worst. And like New York, it tends to create fads. 2 years ago, it was the Cinnamon Challenge, where young people would inhale cinnamon while being recorded. The result, gasping for air and then posting the video onto YouTube. This year, it's not so much the Ice Bucket Challenge, but rather, it's the Fire Challenge. It's the Fire Challenge.
This online trend sweeping across the nation called the Fire Challenge is making its way to Oklahoma. Teens are setting themselves on fire for fun, and one Oklahoma boy was severely burned. News 9's Heather Hope joins us live in the newsroom with a warning from fire officials. Heather? Lacey, for the Fire Challenge, teens are simply pouring alcohol or nail polish remover on their body, and then they light themselves on fire. Sounds bizarre, but the trend is so popular, there are nearly 30,000 videos of it online. A shocking social media stunt. Teens playing with fire and using their bodies as torches. It's a part of the Fire Challenge, a viral dare that's gone nationwide and catching on in Oklahoma.
There was 1,000 bees just stinging me.
5 weeks ago in Lawton, 11-year-old Devin Amison took on the challenge by letting his friends douse him with body spray and then set him on fire.
All my skin off my chest had started and just flopping off. It was bad.
Devin was airlifted to a Dallas hospital where he spent 15 days with second and third degree burns covering his chest and neck. His mother was away visiting her father when Devin did the dare.
He was screaming in pain. You couldn't touch him. You can't hold him, you know. There's nothing you can do, nothing anybody can do.
That's why firefighters are sending a strong warning.
I don't care if you're in the shower, if you're near the pool, just don't do it. It's just so dangerous. If you were to get burned by this type of risky behavior, it's for life, and you can't take it back.
A painful lesson Devin learned the hard way.
Don't play with fire. Fire bad.
And doctors say it can take more than 2 years for Devin to fully recover from his burns. Live in the newsroom, Heather Hope, News 9.
Many of us think of Netflix and Hulu when we're discussing web series, but YouTube has had its own share of web series and content contributors. Some are simply for fun, and others are a bit dark. Slender Man was one such character that some people could not distinguish from simply being a fictitious character. So recently there have been a few such cases, one of them in Cincinnati when a young girl attempted to viciously attack her mom in the name of Slender Man. And then still in another case, 2 girls tried to kill their friend for similar reasons. Okay, up through now we've discussed several of the apps or websites that can create issues if teens aren't monitored properly. However, in the case of smartphones and tablets, the first means of winning the management of that device starts with mom and dad or a young person's guardian being the only person allowed to add apps to that device. You must be the only person that knows the password to iTunes, Google Play, or the Windows App Store. Moreover, each company is trying to eliminate this 15-minute lag time from the time that you enter the password. It does not always work that way. In other words, when you download an app and you give that device back to your child, they actually have about 15 minutes in some cases to download other apps without your knowledge and not have to put in that password. Now, all 3 of the big companies, Google, Apple, and Windows, are trying to resolve that issue. And depending on where you are at any particular time, sometimes that 15 minutes is no longer an issue, but sometimes it is. And in the interim, you have to own that password and hold on to that device until you know that that 15 minutes is up for safekeeping. Now, we don't have a whole lot of time to discuss our last category, which is really video games. But keep in mind, both mobile and console video games are simply computers that can be connected to the internet like any other computer. While their main purpose might be video gaming, oftentimes children meet adults through these games, and it is too often a playground for pedophiles. Now, we've looked at all the high-end overview of the apps. Let's discuss the acts that can find a person, particularly a young person, in trouble. In our student presentations, we discuss 3 main topics: sexting, online privacy, and cyberbullying. And now, after already presenting to 120,000 students and adults, we often know that these 3 topics are not mutually exclusive. There are times a young person is in an act of weakness, might send a naked photo of themselves to someone that they think they're going to love forever. They think it's private, but they use the network or they use the web, which is seldom private. Once the relationship ends, the brokenhearted still have the powerful, inappropriate video or photo, so they send it to others in an act of revenge. It goes viral, and others start to badger, humiliate, and cyberbully the person whose naked photo is now floating around the school, community, or the world. As we always tell students, there are consequences for such actions, whether you're over the age of 18 or under. However, if you're under 18 in most states and take a naked photo of yourself, you have created child pornography. If you send it to someone, you have distributed child pornography. And if someone sends that same image to you, you are now in possession of child pornography. And as we always tell our students, if you know these things are going on, you need to tell a trusted adult. Don't wait, particularly if someone sends such an image to you. This is a national, if not international, issue. It doesn't just happen in big cities. For example, it happens in small towns such as this story in Little Falls. What drives this behavior? Now, some might say Hollywood and modern culture. As you no doubt have heard, such images were hacked from different stars' iCloud accounts. But we also know that the brains of children are not fully wired. and teens have always done things which seem bizarre to adults, but sadly, mistakes made online or with apps may be around forever. But there have been several recent studies published in hundreds of publications suggesting that this is the new teen norm, as we see here in the Chicago Tribune, and now on WebMD, and in this blog. But what are the stats? Well, according to a study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association's Pediatrics, 28% of teens have sent naked photos of themselves. 31% have asked someone to send them such images, and 57% of teens have been asked to send naked photos. Those are astonishing numbers if you're responsible for a young man or a young woman. However, if you believe in the trickle-down theory as I do in some issues, and particularly when it comes to culture, you probably know that much of this started in college, where 46% of college students have sent them and 64% have received them. And there's also a language that has evolved among young people with the purpose to kind of camouflage conversations. And you can learn more about these words, these shortcuts, if you will, by visiting netlingo.com. I think the issue that should concern everyone, young and old alike, is what happens if you make a mistake and send such images. Human nature often takes over if you break up with someone. There is that instinct to gain revenge. And sadly, some take revenge by posting videos and photos of their old flames on revenge pornographic sites. And this is often the result.
I was absolutely mortified. Absolutely mortified.
She quickly realized her pictures were on several sites and immediately tried removing them, since she had never given her consent for them to be posted. But once a file is on the internet, it's extremely difficult to permanently remove it. Mike Weber used to work for the Maine Computer Crimes Task Force and saw a few cases just like Rebecca's. As a certified forensic computer examiner, he's now the CEO and founder of BitSec Global Forensics.
The challenge is when you delete a file, it's not really being deleted. It's just being hidden from your view, and the space that file occupied becomes available for other files in the future. So really all you're doing is making it invisible.
Law enforcement agencies or task forces use special forensic software to recover files. But there are several commercial or publicly and freely available programs anyone can use. And even when you do recover a file, it could be just a copy of it.
Once that picture in this scenario would be transferred to a computer, many times the operating system, unbeknownst to the user, will make multiple copies of that file and leave other artifacts about that file behind.
And that's the issue Rebecca Wells keeps running into. Despite a lawsuit she filed against her ex-boyfriend, her photos show up on these sites from time to time, keeping her Googling her name and searching for certain files. Rebecca's warning to young girls is this:
don't ever let a guy pressure you into this, because a lot of times what they'll do is they'll say, well, if you really trust me and really love me, then you will take this picture and you'll send it to me.
Because a private moment between two people can quickly lead to the rest of the online world watching.
As we mentioned earlier, you can have taken all the correct steps to lock down your security for your apps, but once you click send, you have lost total control over what your friends or your future enemies have in their possession. You know, that's a great introduction to the topic of online privacy. As you no doubt have heard, online privacy is often a fallacy. There is great potential for anything that you've done online to have a life of its own, and it might not ever go away. I like to compare activity with apps, websites, and simply using a smart device to be like waking up in the morning after a winter storm. You see a beautiful white pristine blanket of snow in your backyard. You let the dogs out to go to the bathroom, and a few minutes later you let them back in. However, you see all the little footprints that Fido left in the snow. You know exactly everywhere where Fido walked in the yard. The reality, that's kind of how it is when you use your smartphone or tablet or anything that's connected to your carrier's network. Each of us leaves a digital footprint on the ethers of the network or the web. Metadata, 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 metadata. Metadata is the trail that you leave behind when you use a digital device. It's where you are, it's who you text, call, or email. using your loyalty card or your bank card. The posts that you make on social media or with any digital device, banking device, loyalty card device, become the script of your digital life. Marketing companies may have access to this metadata in order to better know your buying behavior and to offer you things which you might be interested in buying. That's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, this is a copy of my own banking statement. My wife paid for an oil change using her debit card. Interestingly, while checking our online bank activity, I noticed an offer from a competing oil change company. The same was true after a trip to Skyline Chili using the same debit card. We were offered a discount for a pizza. Who would have thought 2 years ago that our banking history and buying habits would be sold by a bank to marketing companies to offer us discounts from their competitors? With the amount of data being collected in the education industry, there's now the concern about student data. Computer technology offers so much to students, but many use their own devices. There's the mix between student studies and student communication and entertainment on these same devices. Then consider the information that teens often share on social media. Much of this is a shortcut to identification theft. It might also provide too much information to someone that doesn't have their best interest at heart. How can these teens protect themselves? I say this probably 10 times during my presentation. Lock the security to friends only and stop sharing so much personally identifiable information. And also remember that once you post it, you've lost control of what your friends or future enemies can do with that information. Another issue that we don't often consider is how do web searches work? In other words, if you search for an image of a student at a specific school, how do these images make their way to your browser? Well, thanks to Larry Page, one of the co-founders of Google, there are these little pieces of digital code called web crawlers. They go out every day, 365 days a year, grabbing articles, images, and videos based off of tags and other information from web servers. So think of these little boxes as web servers. The flashing images may be as files. Each is grabbed, indexed, and stored on other web servers. If you use social media and don't have your account locked to private, web crawlers might have already grabbed your photos, your comments, your posts, and once they've been grabbed, they're searchable, and you'll likely will have lost control over your words, your photos, and images. So as an experiment for our students, I made up a name. I chose the name Elizabeth Mary, and then I won't disclose the last name to protect anyone that might actually appear when I did my original search. I entered the name in my Google search bar and clicked the first person that was returned in the search. And this is what I was able to find out about Elizabeth Mary. Again, I won't mention her last name. I had total access to her Facebook account, total access to her Instagram page and all of her photos and posts, total access to her Tumblr blogging site, but I did not have any access to her Twitter page other than the profile page because she had it locked down to followers only. But I can tell you, if she were applying for a job and someone did the search that I did, I doubt she would have received a job offer because in some cases she showed poor judgment and poor character. And although I'm sure this young woman is a very nice person, she is allowing someone that doesn't know her to make a judgment about her. If she was applying for a job, as I mentioned before, or attempting to be accepted by a college, she might lose an opportunity due to her online persona. Is that fair? Maybe not. But does it happen? Yeah, absolutely it happens. Another issue not typically known is that when you delete something on a digital device or social network, it simply does not go away. For example, when you delete a file on your laptop, your tablet, or your smartphone, it's probably still there. You simply eliminated your immediate access to that photo. Law enforcement know this, and they employ computer forensic companies to retrieve these previously deleted files from computers and other digital devices. So to prove this fact, one such company in Europe purchased 20 used Android phones that were traded in for new phones. So the phones have been totally wiped clean and reset to factory settings. However, even with these devices being deleted and reset, On these 20 used Android phones, they found over 1,000 naked photographs. How do you avoid that happening? Don't take naked pictures of yourself. That's the only way you're going to avoid that happening. Games on tablets and smartphones are great when you're traveling, stuck in airports, or when you simply have some extra time, but many of these games, particularly those that are free, leak personal information. The same kind of info that you might have had to provide to iTunes or Google Play or Windows. This is not necessarily always a bad thing, but you need to know that you might be giving up personal data when you use these apps. And then there are a growing amount of apps that use your GPS for location-based services. Hey, it's okay maybe to know when someone is tracking you if they're your mom or your dad, but what if you're being tracked by someone that doesn't have your best interests at heart? The increased accuracy of facial recognition software, which is growing, coupled with these apps that scrape social media sites looking for specific categories of social media users, today it makes it possible for people using such apps as Girls Around Me, Creepy, and Recognizer to play havoc with young people. That's because of their use of social media, not locking it down, the fact that they use their GPS, right, and the fact that facial recognition software is becoming so sophisticated. We got to remember, your face is like a fingerprint. So Carnegie Mellon has done a lot of research into facial recognition software. It's a great technology, as I always tell students, when you're tracking terrorists, but it's not so good if someone is tracking you or your child. If we ever get a call from a school principal asking that we present as soon as possible, it generally means that they have had a recent cyberbullying issue. It happens at almost every school, rich, poor, parochial. All schools at one time or another must deal with students that now have 24 access to each other. The walls of today's schools don't end at the door. Right or wrong, schools now often deal with issues that didn't occur on campus, but the repercussions ultimately land on their doorstep. So I recommend that all parents and school administrators view this video on YouTube. Simply search the video, "The Sextortion of Amanda Todd." It is a sad, dark, but true story about how a young woman was groomed by a man online without her parents' knowledge, and how her life spun out of control. It started with curiosity. Trust was gained by the pedophile. She took a brief topless photo, and then her life would never be the same. A private moment was not so private. The photo was distributed, and then the cyberbullying began and never ended, even after her death. Cyberbullying has actually changed a lot since Amanda took her own life. Today there are new apps and new methods. Subtexting and subtweeting have become popular. So instead of simply saying Jill Doe is an ugly slut and risk being called out of school by a principal or school resource officer, students try and be specific while still being vague. So Jill Doe becomes the blonde that drives the red Ford Mustang is a slut. The same message hidden behind a technicality. If you're Jill, it doesn't hurt any less. And as you might already know, girls are generally more involved in cyberbullying than boys. There are both the target and the offender more often than boys. This is becoming a significant issue now for the parents of the bullies, with the Georgia Court of Appeals ruling that the parents of a 7th grade boy may be negligent for failing to monitor their son's activity when he was ordered by the court to delete a fake Facebook page he created to defame a classmate, and he never followed through with the order. So in Maryland, my guess is that the state legislators are so tired of young people harming themselves and others due to cyberbullying that the death by suicide of Grace McComas at age 15 provided the impetus to implement a new law. If you're under the age of 18 and convicted of cyberbullying in Maryland, you face up to a year in jail and a $500 fine. They're one of the first states to see this issue as an epidemic with dire consequences. I always tell students when we meet them that you don't know me and I don't know you, but you might not know your best friend as well as you think you do. If they're one of the 10 to 12% of students that are going through depression or anxiety, and you don't know what's going on in their head, in their homes, in their families, or in their hearts, if you cyberbully them, you don't know how they're going to react. As we see in this story from CBS News, the consequences can be tragic.
A sheriff in Florida has arrested 2 girls, ages 12 and 14, on felony charges of aggravated stalking in a case of cyberbullying. A 12-year-old classmate jumped to her death a month ago, and Anna Werner has more.
Police say Rebecca Sedgwick was relentlessly tormented by 2 classmates for a year. The arrests were made after the 14-year-old suspect boasted on the internet about the bullying. Sheriff Grady Judd.
She made a comment in reference to, yeah, I bullied Rebecca, and yeah, she's dead, but I don't give a blank. We saw that and we thought, that's over the top.
The 14-year-old and her 12-year-old accomplice allegedly harassed Sedgwick at school, then followed her online. Taunts included, "You should drink bleach and die. No one likes you." And, "You should go kill yourself." Sedgwick jumped off a tower near her home after writing friends, "I am jumping. I can't take it anymore." We spoke to her mother, Tricia Norman, last month.
I want them to pay for it because they took my baby away. They took her confidence away. They took her self-worth away. And now she's gone from me.
The sheriff hasn't ruled out charging the suspect's parents.
If you can't supervise your child, if they don't behave, then take away their devices. Don't allow them to have Facebook.
So who do you blame more here, the girls or their parents?
I blame them both equally. This incident goes way back until 2012, back in November and December, with fights, with intimidating, with terrorizing Rebecca Sedgwick. So the defendant's parents knew she was bullying.
The 2 suspects are now under house arrest. Scott, if convicted, the sheriff says it's unlikely they would face jail time because this would be their first offense.
Anna, thank you.
I've had the great privilege of visiting the homes and offices of many successful people. In almost every case, the mantels and bookcases are filled with pictures of happy, smiling people. Yet as adults, we all can relate to the words of Ian McLaren. Be kind, for everyone that you meet is fighting a hard battle. Those smiling faces on the mantels and bookcases aren't always smiling in real life. There are divorces, lost jobs, illnesses, and many other things that happen in life that teens suffering from such issues, coupled with depression, don't want to share. And again, if they are cyberbullying during their difficult time, they are 5 times more likely to harm themselves. We tell students to please take our message seriously. Take 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 hours before you send or post on social media and other platforms. We ask them to think, how will this impact my ability to get into college, to get a job, maybe to get into the military? Will someone be judging me based off of my words, my posts, my pictures, my videos, that might keep me from meeting my life's goals? Will someone be offended and feel bullied by my post and then harm themselves or others? And if they're confident that there are no issues with what they're posting, then click send. And if not, just click delete. Well, as adults, you're probably wondering, what do you do now? Well, first off, as an adult, I always say, set expectations. Don't allow your child to take their mobile phone or laptop into their bedrooms or bathrooms. Make certain that their PCs or laptops or tablets are used in a common area of the house within your view. Know the password to their phone, their PCs, their email accounts, and social networking sites. And remember, parents must control the password for downloading apps. Consider parental controls for the family PC and laptops and tablets and smartphones. And for example, for smartphones, each carrier sells such controls at an approximate price of around $4.99. Ask your carrier, what do they have available? There are also many mobile monitoring tools that can be purchased. However, be prepared to receive every update of your child's social media, and a drain on your battery and that of your child's will likely occur. And there are many well-vetted sites that provide strong and compelling information to parents, administrators, and students related to social networking and mobile computing and communication. 3 strong sites that we suggest are that'snotcool.com, commonsensemedia.org, and connectsafely.org. And of course, I also ask you to visit our blog site, awiredfamily.org. I've posted many of my own articles and links to relevant subjects. I've also posted several videos, such as this one, to help you manage your family's digital devices. And finally, please feel free to contact me with any questions. Cincinnati Bell appreciates you as a customer and a valued member of our community. Together we can help our children navigate technology while also enjoying the tremendous power of digital communication. I'm Steve Smith for Cincinnati Bell, wishing you and your family